Chef AJ here with our good friend, Dr. Doug Lisle, who, as your Christmas present, has agreed to give a session to you guys based on your questions. There's so many, so we'll get started. Dr. Lisle said nothing is off limits, that I could even ask a personal question because one of you did, so I'm going to start with that one. So Dr. Lisle, the question is, because Dr. Lisle is such a mastermind when it comes to evolutionary psychology, is that the reason he's not in a relationship or dating? Whether he evo psychs the heck out of any potential mate and finds she doesn't qualify, or it's because of his own personality, introverted and lack of openness, that keeps him from playing the dating game? Inquiring minds want to know. I knew you'd like that question.
Oh, well, every once in a while, you know what they say, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn now and then. So every now and then I have a date, and then at the end of the date, after the poor lady has heard 2 hours of evolutionary psychology, it all kind of goes south. So someday out there, I might get a lucky strike. We'll see. I'm still no harm in continuing to try.
Well, there's so many people in our group that are also fans of the Beat Your Gene podcast, so they wondered. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So Stacy says, if the goal is to be fitness model lean or a skinny bitch, and you're already eating left of the red line, actively lifting weights, and at a healthy and fit weight, what's the best approach to take if following a health-promoting diet style like UWL as designed, I don't get the question, is still keeping the vanity pounds? I guess the way I understand the question is this person's already fit, but they want to lose 10 vanity pounds. So that's how I'm interpreting the question. It didn't read as good as I thought, but that's what I'm assuming the question from Stacy is. If
Right.
The goal is to be a skinny bitch, you're already eating perfectly, you're like, what's the best approach to take?
Yeah. Alan would say you could try heroin. That would take some weight off of you. Let's get real here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get down below a healthy weight. The kind of weights that this person's referring to are the kind of weights that shuts off the menstrual system and essentially tell the genes basically start saying that you're in such a harsh environment, that you're working so hard at getting enough calories, there's no way that you could bring a child to term. So we're going to shut down reproduction indefinitely until such time as the environment gets back to some normal semblance of a human environment. And at that point, once you've gained those 10 pounds back, then we'll allow you to both get interested in sex and start having sex and then get pregnant, okay? And you can face all that. So the point is that what the person's asking is, listen, maybe I go on camera, if you're a model or you're an actress, and you want to actually, the camera will make you look thicker than you really are. And so as a result, you feel like, I have to be unbelievably thin if I'm not going to look overweight on camera. So I faced this problem before, and I've had young women or women of all ages, sort of frantic to try to do the unnatural thing with natural food. So you can already sense my impatience with the problem, because I don't want to tell you how to do it, because I don't want you to do it. I want you to face whatever the quote vanity problem is that's driving us to try to push ourselves down to the edge of an unhealthy weight. However, if you put a gun to my head and you said, okay, if I had to do it for some reason, there's an Oscar on the line for this part, and I might be able to get this part, and I'm in the running for this part, and they're going to look at me in about 6 weeks. What on earth can I do? I don't want to be using amphetamines, and I don't want to start smoking cigarettes again, and I don't want to be constantly incredibly hungry. So how could you best cause me to be the least outrageously hungry and as healthy as possible while I'm systematically underfeeding? And the answer is to eat a raw food diet. Okay, so the answer is that you would go essentially entirely raw. You might just have, you might have a few steamed vegetables, maybe steamed greens, but basically raw salad, fruit, and some steamed spinach, and call it a day. And you can live like that, indefinitely, super lean, shut down menses, be underweight, and look good on camera, if that's what you want to do. All right.
Wow, well, that's interesting that you said that. I didn't expect that to be the answer, because there actually was a question from Amy asking if a raw food diet was better for health than eating cooked food.
Yes, raw food diet is not better for health than cooked food. We're not designed to eat a raw food diet. You can eat a raw food diet, but I guess the appropriate way to frame this is you were designed by nature to eat cooked food. The use of fire has been part of human nature for as long as you've been Homo sapien. And so we're designed by nature to be eating, quite frankly, probably the biggest source of calories would have been the starches that Dr. McDougall has made the center of his diet. Something that the vegans get uncomfortable with is we're also designed to eat meat. We're designed to be able to make use of those calories, and they've been an important source of calories for human beings forever. Now, you don't have to eat them now, and you don't need them for any nutrient. But our ancestors did need those calories, otherwise they would have starved to death. So we widened our palate out into include meat. The meat was cooked along with the other cooked foods, the other cooked vegetables and cooked starches. And then we ate raw salad vegetables and raw fruits along with that, and that comprises the human diet. So do you need, or is raw food the healthiest food? No. Raw food is great, but there's nothing healthier about raw food than there is about steamed vegetables or a cooked starch. They're all A+ as far as I'm concerned, and that goes with nuts too. Probably even a cooked nut. I asked Colin Campbell this at one point, and he had no problems with the idea of nuts being cooked. That's different than being dry roasted by planters and salted up and having a bunch of crap all over it and fried in oil. That's not a cooked nut. So anyway, but obviously the nuts are rich, and we're trying to stay away from those in an ultimate weight loss program. So but no, the question on the table was, is the best diet a raw food diet for humans? And the answer is it would not appear to be the case, because raw food diets systematically lead to human beings being extremely lean, and they women wind up having menses shut down. And that's in a modern environment where they're not battling problems of temperature regulation at night. They have heaters, and they're not having to do incredible toil in order to get those calories. They have to do very little in terms of exercise. So when you start thinking about human nature, it's impossible to envision human nature where human beings were eating raw foods exclusively, because we can see that even in a modern environment, people having as much raw food as they want and not having to work hard and not having to fight the cold at night, under those conditions, they get too skinny to reproduce. So it's very clearly not human natural history. Human natural history includes the inclusion of cooked foods, and I believe a cooked vegan diet is the cooked and raw vegan diet, if it includes both, is the optimal diet for people.
Great, thank you. And when you answered the question about how to lose those 10 vanity pounds, you said, how do we face the vanity problems? How do the women, I mean, do you have any advice? Because I don't have them with my weight, but I'm getting older, and I just would love to have plastic surgery on every part of my body if I could.
It's called the human condition.
Oh.
Hey, sorry. All of us, some of the most beautiful people that I've ever met are very concerned about their appearance. And when they slip from the 99.9 percentile to the 99th percentile, it's a crisis, okay? So, of course, the human condition, we are inherently designed by nature to worry about our appearance. Some of us are more sensitive to those issues than others naturally, and some of us incredibly are not very sensitive about those issues. Those people should be all put on an island together. But this is just the differences in human nature. So unfortunately, some people have a highly conscientious chip about their appearance, and what we can say is be smart, do the healthy things that are not dangerous for your health and that are not going to wreck the integrity of your body. And for goodness sakes, a lot of these beauty treatments that women do are just incredibly bad judgment. I'm not saying that's always true for cosmetic surgery, but a lot of the cosmetic procedures are bad news. They have short-term benefits that cause long-term damage. So you should be avoiding those things basically under all circumstances, almost all circumstances. There could be a case here and there that you could make a case for some of these things, Botox and things like that. But in general, I would say very bad idea. Botox, collagen, face peeling, any of this stuff. This is bad decision making. Don't do it.
Wow. Well, on the heels of that question, we have one from Mary that said that she would love to know from an evolutionary psychologist perspective why women in general are so preoccupied by weight and body image as compared to men. It seems to affect women of all socioeconomic levels of education and races.
Yes, the reason is that more of women's mate value is located in their appearance than men. That's because men provision women in human natural history. So therefore, a greater degree of men's mate value is associated with their ability to provision. So that remains true to this day. So men's self-confidence and their attractiveness as mates has a lot to do with their professional success. Women's self-confidence and professional success has basically nothing to do with their mate value. This is just straight human evolution. The reason why this is true is men would never need to be choosing mates based on their ability to protect the male and provide for the male. The male doesn't need protection and provision, and therefore he doesn't seek it. So what he seeks instead are cues for optimum fertility and optimum gene purity, basically. In other words, he seeks low mutation load mates. This is true throughout the animal kingdom. This is a characteristic feature of mate selection, and so human beings are no different. The only difference is that we see in our species, because and only because we are a pair bond species. If you were in mammals, only about 3% of mammals are pair bonds, which means that the males stick around to provision. In 97% of mammalian species, or about 3,900 out of the 4,000 mammalian species, the males do not stick around to provision offspring. So the provisioning of offspring is a rare event in nature. And in those cases, which is the dominant characteristic in nature where the males do not provision, then females are not preoccupied with their appearance at all. So females throughout the animal kingdom couldn't care less what they look like. They do not preen, and they do not grow sexual ornaments. Okay, there's nothing about them that is sexy. All females, from the standpoint of males, are 10s, every single one of them. And what the females do, the females have extraordinary discriminating beauty detection mechanism for looking at the differences of the attractiveness of men or males. So the males are the only sex that has sexual ornamentation, like peacock feathers on a peacock, the plumage that you see throughout the animal kingdom, the large musculature that you'll see in certain animals, elephants, seals, horses, in other words, the manes that you'll see on a lion. There's all kinds of sexually attractive characteristics that you will see, and you'll see them exclusively on males. So the males have no concept in their mind of female beauty, the females are entirely judging the males based on their beauty. And so, so essentially in nature, almost all of nature is exactly the opposite of humans. So in a few species like humans where there's pair bonding, both sexes will have characteristics that incite sexual lust or attractiveness. And so that's true in humans. Both the females are ornamented and also the males are ornamented. So in both cases, they are choosing partners very carefully because they're about to go into a joint program of provisioning. So that's how that works. So yeah, but that's the evolutionary reason why in males and females, the females are considerably more invested in their beauty than the males are, unless the males are gay. Okay, the males are gay. That's a hybrid mating image system. So they have a different motivational system that borrows from effectively the female system, and so they're extremely concerned about their beauty in that case.
That's absolutely.
As for myself, I'm only moderately concerned.
Well, you look great, but that is really fascinating. I always wondered that. So thank you. It's a great question and a great answer. Amber says that we know what the perfect personality is for someone to eat sofas free without any qualms or issues, Alan Goldhammer. But what kind of personality is required to make people want to do the ultimate weight loss program, but because their personality isn't perfect, they struggle to do so?
Boy, well, I'm not sure I understand the question, so you're going to help me with this, AJ. Is Amber asking us what's the perfect personality for persuading other people to do this?
Oh, Amber, if you're watching, can you clarify this and type on the screen? She writes, what kind of personality is required to make people want to do this?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Because their personality.
Then go on. So I think I understand. Now let's go on with the
personality isn't perfect, they struggle to do so.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, that the perfect personality to persuade others, to do this, the persuasiveness capabilities are going to be different depending upon what it is that you're trying to sell. So if you're trying to sell shaving cream to males, then you want Farrah Fawcett. Okay, that's how they did that. Okay, if you're trying to sell ice cubes to Eskimos, I don't know who it is that's the pitch person. So if you're trying to sell computers, it turned out it was Steve Jobs. So the question is, what's the perfect personality to essentially try to encourage and persuade people of this, to go this direction? There isn't a perfect personality because the audience is not homogenous. It's actually a heterogeneous group of people that are going to respond to different kinds of persuasive appeals. That's why some people will respond well to Chef AJ, other people respond well to Dr. McDougall, other people respond well to Dr. Campbell, other people to Pam Popper, other people to Joel Furman. In other words, we're going to find that different personalities bringing a similar message will find somewhat different audiences. So really good question that has actually a wide, diverse answer. So it's going to turn out there's no such thing other than some enthusiasm and a high degree of confidence in the message. So if we have somebody that's equivocating, that's not going to work. So a really even-keeled, fair-minded person who sees all angles of every kind of a problem and et cetera, doesn't take a position strongly, that person's not going to find a lot of followers. What you're going to see is a lot of vehemence, okay? So the people that are going to be persuasive are going to tend to be quite vehement. And then from within that vehemence, there's going to be different personalities. So Colin Campbell is vehement, but he's got a different style than John McDougall. And as a result, they're going to appeal to slightly different personalities on the other side of the fence.
Okay, great. So Amber just typed clarifying, saying, not trying to convince anyone, She says, why are there so many hyper-conscientious nutcases like us who want to do UWL, but because our own personality isn't perfect, fail to do UWL?
Okay. So so certainly UWL is a place for hyper-conscientious nutcases to land. The reason is as follows. So if we take the camera back and point why people are here, it's called ultimate weight loss. And so it's going to turn out that weight loss is the most common personal growth goal of people in the Western world. So it's no surprise that there's basically 200 million American adults trying to lose weight. So and not only are they trying to lose weight, it's their number one personal goal. They would rather lose weight than get a promotion. They would rather lose weight than win a dance contest. They'd rather lose weight than have their kid graduate from high school. Okay? Their number one personal goal is to lose weight. Wow. All right, now we go from there and we say, okay, well, whenever we have something that everybody wants, you can trust me, we're going to have 17,000 different opinions about how to do it. So it's just like, what's the best way to invest in the stock market? Everybody wants to maximize their rate of return on the stock market. What do we have? We have 150,000 gurus that are going to tell you how you're going to do it. And you're going to have huge numbers of books being sold every year by thousands of different people, and all of them are going to share their secrets. Okay? Now, so the same thing is true of weight loss. Now, some weight loss is going to say, there's literally a book by, I think, Dr. Dean O'Dell 20 years ago. It's called Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. Okay? Now, I liked him. He was a really friendly guy. He was a Los Angeles-based celebrity doctor. Friendly character as far as I could tell. But really, eat, drink, and be merry. Okay? So let's look at what we're going to get. We're going to get the chocolate diet. We're going to get the salmon diet. We're going to get the lard diet. We're going to get everything else in it. We're going to have, as John McDougall would say, people telling us good news about our bad habits. All around the landscape, we're going to have all kinds of people telling us that rich food, everything from chocolate pie to nuts, okay, to lasagna, to ice cream, to cheese and steak. We're going to have everybody under the sun is going to be telling us about how rich food is going to aid and abet this cause. Now, we know something about rich food, and that is the richer the food, the greater the activation of the dopamine pathway. So in other words, the pleasure centers of the brain appropriately are designed by nature to try to calibrate for you how many calories are in the food. You need some mechanism of incentive if you're an animal trying to survive in an environment of scarcity. You need a device to help you, like a metal detector for a treasure hunter. You need a device to tell you when you've got the treasure and how valuable it is. And so that's what your taste buds are. Your taste buds are a treasure detector, and the richer the treasure, the better they like it. So you can imagine how few weight loss programs are going to be interested in telling you the truth. Okay? Almost none. That's how many there's going to be. So for every McDougall, Goldhammer, or AJ, there's going to be 17,500 charlatans out there. They're going to be telling everybody everything that they want to hear and not what they need to know. All right. So who finds our way to Dr. McDougall and Dr. Campbell and Dr. Ornish and Dr. Goldhammer, et cetera? Who finds their way there? The hyper-conscientious nutcases that are not deterred by the fact that we're asking you to climb Kilimanjaro with a sprained ankle. Okay, that's what we're asking you to do. We're saying, look, if you want to do this, but gee, everybody's got such an easy solution. Really? If that's true, why is everybody failing? Why is this remain year after year with the same 300 million people the number one personal goal in the United States? The answer is because nothing changes. Year after year, the same 300 million people remain in the same boat that they were last year. So nobody has the solution. All right, so what is the solution? The solution is to eat whole natural food that is not high of calorie density. That's the solution. Oh, well, we don't want this solution. It's okay. I don't care. People can just go right ahead and continue to fail. And unfortunately, I wish I had another answer. I wish I had a magic pill that helped the hypothalamus say, you know what, you've had 2,000 calories a day of chocolate cheesecake and donuts, and you've had enough, and now you're fully satiated, and now go ahead about your business, and tomorrow maybe try to eat something a little healthier, but it won't matter because we're going to stop you at exactly the right amount of calories every day. I wish there was such a device, but there will never be such a device, and that's because this device was designed by nature to ferret out what the calorie density is of the foods and to drive you to eat the richest food in the environment. That's what it's designed to do. It's absolutely relentlessly designed to defend you against the #1 survival problem of all time for every animal, which is starvation. Okay, now, so there's exactly one solution. The solution is to eat a natural diet with what we would consider a very low calorie density diet relative to what everybody else is eating, but a diet consistent in its natural calorie density with the natural diet of the species. In other words, we've got to have it pretty close to the way that our ancestors had it for the last couple of million years. Now, so that's a diet kind of like AJ's diet, or kind of like John McDougall's diet, or kind of like Colin Campbell's, or Engine 2, or Joel Furman's diet. In other words, and Alan Goldhammer's diet. In other words, these diets are all pretty close, pretty similar in their calorie density, but they all involve a lot of whole natural foods. Some of them are a little richer, some of them are a little less rich, some of them are touting certain specific foods, some of them aren't. But the bottom line is, the notion here is to eat a diet that is not full of extraordinarily rich foods that are essentially dragging the calorie density of the diet up higher than it would have been in its natural history. Now, so who does this? The only people that are interested are the hyper-conscientious nutcases. Now, once we have the hyper-conscientious nutcases educated and they understand what to do, they don't become uneducated because they're hyper-conscientious nutcases. Okay? They are sniffing the truth, and they know what they want, just like everybody else wants this. They want to be thin, they want to be healthy, they want to be fit, and they want to look good and feel good about themselves, just like they should. And so they know that this is the right way to do it. There might be other tricks. We could put you on fen-phen, amp up the hypothalamus, or basically cause you to be an amphetamine addict, one way or the other. That's another way to do it. We could put you under surgery and have liposuction. That's another way to do it. There's all kinds of whack job ways of doing this that aren't going to fly. So the one way that's going to work is what? Whole natural foods of a calorie density that are consistent with your natural history. Wow, how boring is that drum? Okay, we're just going to keep beating that drum, and I'm going to be beating that drum to the last month on Earth that I'm going to be here, because that's the only solution there is. Now, it's the only solution there is, folks, to the #1 personal growth problem of people in the last century. This is the biggest personal problem that people have. It gets in the way of more self-esteem issues, more business issues, more friendship issues, more romance issues, more I'm embarrassed because my kids are embarrassed and I feel bad because I'm a fat lady and now my kids have to be seen. More concerned about our children because they're getting fat. It is more problems than any other problem that there is. There's no problem as big and widespread and impactful on human happiness than this. Wow. Now, what's the problem? You got to eat a diet of your natural history, and nobody wants to hear it. Nobody. Okay? We, finally, a few of us, we understand the answer, and we've tried to figure out, how to explain this as best we can. And what do we wind up with? We wind up with people who are willing to listen. Why are they willing to listen? Because they've got guts, and they want the solution, and they're hyper-conscientious nutcases. Okay? These are unusual personalities. So now the question on the table is, well, how come the hyper-conscientious nutcases can't do it, even though they want to do it? I just told you. We're asking you to climb Kilimanjaro with a sprained ankle. You're not supposed to be able to do this. Every instinct in you tells you not to. Everyone, okay? The energy conservation instinct tells you eat the richest food and get the easiest way access to it. Drive through, okay? Buy it in bulk. Don't chew anything, have it be Cheetos. God forbid, you want some fruit? Oh no, that's too much trouble. Get some ice cream instead. We'll not only get the sweet of the fruit, but we'll get the fat of some fatted calf that we've slaughtered that has very high fat content in its body. So we're going to get that at the same time. And then, you know, when we get done with that, we're going to have some chocolate. Well, what's that? It's got sugar, it's got fat, and it's got salt, all three. The pleasure pathways were only designed to be activated by one of those things at a time. But we're going to get all three. So we're going to give you a supernormal stimulus. We're going to tell you not to do this, and you're going to try to tell yourself not to do this when the number one survival instinct is telling you to do it. And you're saying, yes, but I'm a hyper-conscientious nutcase and I really want to do it. It's like, I understand that you're a hyper-conscientious nutcase. I understand that you found the right answer, that you know exactly what you should be doing, and you're still not doing it, okay? What does that mean? That means you're a rare human that's almost there, okay? It's the equivalent of going 99 yards in a football game and you're at the 1 yard line. Okay, you got to get over the line or you don't give you any points. So it's not easy to do. And I have great compassion. I have compassion for all people who struggle with this problem. Folks, this problem is not a natural problem. So when you see somebody walking down the street that's 150 pounds overweight, and you look at them, and part of you may feel disgust because of the misshapedness of their form and the feeling that they did this to themselves. But I have compassion for all people struggling with this problem because I know that this is not a problem of their own making. This is a problem of a bizarre environment that has been concocted by human genius over the last 100 years and has now created unnatural drug-like products and the easy to get them and the complete and utter inexpensiveness of the entire process to get as much as you want. This is not consistent with the natural history of the species or any species. And in fact, if you provide the very same situation for any species in the laboratory, they all do exactly what humans do. They all get fat and sick. That's what happens, without exception. There's never been a species that's been studied that doesn't do this. So now we ask the question differently, okay? I'm a hyper-conscientious nutcase. I know that I should be doing this, but I'm not doing it. You know, what's the problem? The problem is that this is a very difficult road. And so give yourself a break. If you have stumbled, if you've gotten to the 1 yard line and not scored a touchdown, okay? This is the way it goes. So you do as good a job as you can, maybe you get a field goal. So you got 60 pounds to lose, maybe you get 30 pounds of it off, and that's as well as you can do. That's fine. You take a field goal, okay? So many people take field goals in this quest, and they are super hyper-conscientious people, but they may be agreeable, they're open, they're social, they've got other personality issues that are coming into this problem and making it very difficult for them to walk the narrow road all the way to the touchdown. So I want people to extend compassion to themselves, that if at any time in your life and in this quest, that the best you can do is to kick a field goal, then kick it, okay? Kick it and take what you can. And don't catastrophize over the fact that you may not have all the pieces put together and you may never score a touchdown. You might. You're in the right place. You've identified the right people. You've identified the right principles. You're right there, okay? But keep in mind, this is no easy place to score. Okay? You would be an extremely rare individual that would actually pull this off. Probably on the order of 1 in 1,000. Probably about 1 in 1,000. Very few people are conscientious enough to find this information and to not just go off on the next wild trick and promise to the next thing when this gets too tough. So the people that stick with this and stick around this information and hover around and stick their toe in the water, those are unusual people already, okay? We've now eliminated 90% of humanity or 95% of humanity. And now what's going to be left, okay? Well, now we got a job. We got to roll up our shirt sleeves, and we got some rough sledding to do, and probably a lot of stumbling. It's okay. Okay, don't catastrophize. Your job is to do the very best you can and learn from the mistakes along the way. Okay?
That's incredible. I had no idea that our pleasure pathways, we weren't supposed to have them all activated at once with sugar, fat. I didn't realize that. I know that sugar, fat, and salt don't ever appear together in nature, but I didn't know that they weren't supposed to be what you said at the same time.
Simultaneously activated.
Yeah, I never knew that. I love when I learn something new. Thank you so much. And we have an interesting, really great comment that says, wow, he definitely puts this weight problem into perspective and how it affects everything and is likely the root problem of many personal issues. Terrific. Thanks. So, yeah, you know, you mentioned fen-phen. I was on that, Dr. Lisle, and I mean, I know it wasn't good for me, but it really did work.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a trick, but it did work. And then the FDA told. Yeah. It was incredible because you really could eat anything you wanted. You just didn't want too much of it, you know, which maybe is the way like your brain works and Charles's brain works in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Elizabeth has a question. What is the biggest impediment to staying abstinent once you get some abstinence under your belt? Is it getting cocky, exhaustion, fear?
Okay. This presupposes that indefinite abstinence is your goal. Okay? So let's take this question on and let's try to understand what our real goals are. The real goal is to have a nice, comfortable, long-term success at some level. So let's look at what we're really asking rather than necessarily answering Elizabeth's question directly. It's going to turn out that there are two major motivational forces that we need to understand if we're going to have long-term success. The one motivational force is the pleasure trap. So this is your pleasure-seeking mechanism now confronted with modern opportunity. So if the pleasure trap was not on top of us, if we did not have this unnatural problem, we wouldn't be having this question. So let's keep in mind that this question doesn't make any sense for any humans or any other species in history except now. Okay, this is the only time that and it only matters in the industrialized world. So only under very bizarre, novel conditions does this question make any sense at all. So that's because of the pleasure trap. Now there's a secondary motivational dilemma for humans, and that is that human beings can be embarrassed and they can lose status by not doing something as well as was expected. So if people expect you to win the boxing match and you lose it, you have lost status. If people expect you to get an A in chemistry and you don't get it, you have lost status. Okay? So people don't like to lose status. So they will avoid situations where they think that other people think more highly of their abilities than they do themselves. So this is what I call the ego trap. The ego trap is when other people say, "Oh yeah, we think that you can do it." You don't want to do it. You can imagine, for any men listening, that you've got three buddies in the bar, and there's an attractive female at the bar, and you're known as sort of the ladies' man of the group. And they say, "Hey, yeah, she'd probably go for you. Why don't you go hit on her? She's really hot." That kid doesn't want to do that. That's a terrifying prospect. Okay, so he knows he's very likely to fail. Why? Because he's probably failed in many such situations. Just because he's had some successes doesn't mean he hasn't had many failures. And so now his status is on the line. I had a tremendous report from a man at the McDougall Advanced Study Weekend, probably about 10 years ago, when I spoke about the ego trap. And he was this handsome, tall, athletic guy, probably 60. He was an old man, kind of like me now. Okay. But he was very, very fit, and he was long and lean, just like you'd expect a terrific tennis player to look. And he told me that he the number one rated tennis player in his club for 16 straight years. So probably between age 30 and 46 or whatever it was. Now he was older now, so obviously there's younger guys, but that's a huge stretch of dominance. And he said that he never played in the club championship. And the reason why he didn't do it was because of what I've been talking about. That everybody expected him to win, but he wasn't sure that he could win. And in fact, he thought there was a good chance that he could lose, because on any given day, anybody in the top 5 could beat him. So he would suffer a big status loss if he failed to win the title. And he always felt really bad and embarrassed and ashamed of not entering the tournament, but he couldn't do it. And the reason is his mind had determined that he had more status to lose than he had to gain. And so when he said to me right there, processing this horrendous little happiness cancer that had lived inside of him for 25 years, he said, I just should have just done it. I should have just done it. And had I played all those years, I would have lost some and I would have won some. But I'd have great memories, and I wouldn't have had to live all those years with this feeling that I was hiding and that I was too gutless to do this. And it was really quite a moment for him to go through this, and hopefully inspiring to him. Like, don't let it continue. Like, be on the lookout for when you are feeling like you're hiding from the challenge because other people have set the bar too high. So this is the ego trap. And the ego trap can take place even if there aren't any specific individuals like the people around the club. It could be dead people. It could be your dead mother or father that expected you to be a great pianist, and you have not been on the piano for 20 years, even though they've passed away, because you feel like the expectations are too high and you're not the genius that they thought they were. What happened is that the expectations of others can infiltrate their way into what I call your internal audience, which is a little group of people that sits inside your mind and watches you. Now, what can happen is that if the expectations from both either the outside world directly or the outside world indirectly through your internal audience, if you are being watched by your internal audience and you do a very good job, what's going to happen is it's going to signal pride to you, back to the self. It's going to basically say, well done. And what will happen when people are, quote, abstinent, when they do an excellent job, and they do something that is difficult that most people aren't able to do, what happens is that they get a steady flow of esteem signals from their internal audience to their esteem meter, and from the esteem meter to the self, where they feel that the internal audience is actually in a low-grade awe of the individual. And it feels wonderful, self-esteem-wise. And the self revels in this. And there's an air of even superiority that comes with this. There's almost a gloating that can often take place. It's like, look, and the self is saying, look at what I've earned. Look at the self-esteem that I've earned. I've earned it. And they have. And there's a momentum at your back. It sets up a chain reaction of success that can be, a good, solid set of motivational momentum. This is what you see in Rocky. That's what makes Rocky, a great film, is that you see a pride start to develop, and it takes on, it's kind of like a firestorm. The harder he works, the more impressed his internal audience is with him, and he feels great about this, as he should. He's very proud of it, and so then he continues to work hard, and the internal audience continues to be impressed, and you wind up with a locomotion of achievement. Okay. Now, anybody that's ever had that in any arena, and certainly in this arena, they know that that feels golden, that you feel really good physically because you've done a great job physically, and you feel great mentally, that there is something that's happening, and that is that the ego trap is raising its head. It's raising its head because the bar is getting really high. Okay, so what's happening is that the longer you go and the greater job that you're doing, the internal audience is basically saying, okay, I'm starting to expect perfection now, because you've done perfection over and over and over and over and over again. Starting to expect it. Okay, so it still feels good, but here's the problem. You might say, well, then why can't you do it indefinitely? Because we forgot about somebody. We forgot about the pleasure trap. Pleasure trap is an omnipresent force that is trying to take you down a direction that your genes are telling you is the right direction. They keep chirping at you. Just go to the mall, smell the Cinnabon. And there it is. So what's going to happen is there's constant pressure from the pleasure trap. Now, you can do a heck of a job organizing your environment the way AJ and Dr. Goldhammer have done. It's people that basically build a fortress around their existence, and they build another fortress around their social existence. It's like, yeah, I don't have any friends that eat crap because, forget it, Alan only has one friend. He eats some crap once in a while, but never when Alan's around. Never. Okay? So Alan's got himself a fortress. AJ has constructed a fortress. And so these are then it makes it easier within the fortress. Okay, so it's not as hard. But most of us are not going to construct such extraordinary fortresses. So even though you will get to places where you do, if you're hyper conscientious, which many people that are here are, and you get a little momentum going, and so even once it's rolling, then now there's a wind at your back, and you are feeling that feeling of self-esteem, which is earned and it's grand. But then what happens is that the internal audience starts to expect it. Okay, and now we're still getting under attack from the ego trap. Excuse me, yeah, from the pleasure trap. And then the pleasure trap one day can crack the resolve of the self-esteem mechanism and all the fortresses that people put up. The day that happens, this person is in trouble. Okay, because now the self, is chagrined, and the internal audience is like, wow, you're not perfect after all. Okay, so there's disappointment. So there's a signal, in fact, of disgust and disappointment from the internal audience to the esteem meter. The self now feels this and is like, whoa, I guess we're not a perfect person. Whoa, I guess it isn't that we held it all together perfectly. Looks like maybe we can't do this in the future. But the internal audience still has expectations. It's like, well, you could do it before and you could do it again. And if you got self-indulgent and weak, but if you just do what you're supposed to do, which I now expect you to do, then you can earn my respect again. And the self looks at that and basically says, I'm not so sure that this is worth doing. And it runs a cost-benefit analysis because it can smell that it's going to have failure in the future. And it starts to kick over the table. And it starts to send the signal to the internal audience that says, I'm not really trying. Watch while I eat a chocolate parfait right in front of you, because I'm not trying. Watch while I have a glass of wine right in front of you, because I'm not trying. And so this is, you can imagine a young person, let's give this an analogy that would fit. A young person who is very bright and very diligent and working very hard in junior high school, And they haven't been perfect, and they're not a genius, but they're good. And they're a bright young person. And they've gotten like 4 A's and 2 B's, and then they got 5 A's and 1 B. It's like, boy. And then one semester, second half of 8th grade, they got all 6 A's. And they're like, wow, I got all 6 A's. And mom and dad said, wow, you got all 6 A's. And now, unfortunately, mom and dad get a little too excited. And they say, wow, you're a straight A student. Start telling everybody in town proudly, hey, my daughter's a straight A student. So now 9th grade comes around, and now what are we feeling? Instead of the excitement of the achievement of getting as good as we can, suddenly we feel the pressure. So maybe the girl gets straight A's again. Now it's a relief. It's not even pride. It's just dreading any failure, okay? So now she goes and, miraculously and through incredibly working, kissing up to a bunch of professors or teachers, she manages to do it again, okay? So now we've got 3 in a row. So now we go to the big high school, 10th grade, goes to first semester of high school. She's all nervous, goes in there, can't do it. Gets a B. High school biology, 10th grade biology, tough class, bunch of smart kids, teacher that's a hard grader gets a B. Okay. Now you got problems. Now the parents are like, hey, what's the deal? And that kid can feel like, you know what? I worked really hard and I did as well as I could do, but I wasn't perfect. And you expect me to be perfect? You know what I'm going to do? The way I'm going to hold on to your esteem, the best way that I can hold on to it is by failing utterly. That if I fail utterly, if I make it very clear that, I'm going to go out there and get C's, a couple of B's, maybe a D. Like, I'm just going to crash this car. I'm in a crisis. I'm having emotional problems. Okay? I'm going to crash this thing. So when I crash it, you're going to look over and you're going to say, well, this isn't you. You're doing a disgusting job, but you're not fooling me. I know you're better than that. Okay, I know that you're better than that. You're not this bad. You could be a straight A student if you tried. Okay? This is how we maintain the status of a straight A student. Strangely and paradoxically, we maintain the status of being a straight A student by being a C student. That's how we do it. Okay? This is the ego trap. Ego trap is a deep instinctual mechanism in humans that's designed for any social situation where you're given more status than you deserve and you don't believe that the next challenge of that ability that you will be able to perform up to what is expected. So the right thing to do is to self-sabotage and wreck it. That you make it exceedingly clear that what they observe in your next effort is not your best effort. That is the way to cloak the ability of the outside people to actually determine what you're capable of. That's what it is. Okay, now, that is a critical social survival instinct in humans. Now, the pleasure trap and the ego trap working together have comprised to form a opponent process of forces that go against your ability to manage this problem. So the pleasure trap is defeating basically everybody else in the country. Anybody that tries to lose weight will be defeated by the pleasure trap. That's what will defeat them. They don't even want to try to take on the pleasure trap. They're being told by everybody that they don't have to do it. Everybody's got some gimmick that you can eat chocolate cheesecake and lose weight according to their little plan. Okay? Not us. This is where we take the pleasure trap on head on. We know what it is, and we're trying to avoid it. However, the expectations can get very high. And you can get them high for yourself by being a hyper-conscientious nutcase and do a superlative job for an extended period of time, where what happens is that your internal audience observes greatness. And so when it observes greatness, what happens is it comes to expect it, just like those parents. And then one day along the way, you stumble, just like our kid that finally got a B. Okay? And now the kid, feeling the enormous pressure of those expectations and understands that she can't live up to them, kicks the table over and basically sabotages the entire enterprise. That's the ego trap. The pleasure trap and the ego trap form an unbelievable dual-edged sword that is very difficult to navigate. So I want you to understand that when it comes to setting goals for this kind of a problem, you have a continuum that looks like this. On the one end, if we completely defeat the pleasure trap, then that means we've gone to 100% perfection on the diet, and we will get the maximum sensitivity of the palate, and we will habituate to that, and we won't taste anything else that will outcompete it, because the only thing that we're going to be eating is whole natural foods. So that, in principle, is the simplest way to do it, and it's the way Alan looks at it. And he just says, we'll do it that way. That way you don't have the problem with the pleasure trap. The problem with that is that that is the maximum intensity of the ego trap. That is the maximum intensity. So by minimizing the intensity of the pleasure trap, by completely eliminating the pleasure trap from the game, we have literally gone all the way to the end of the line. And we've turned up the volume on the ego trap as loud as it could be put. Seek perfection. Okay. Now suppose instead we realize that's a disaster. That isn't going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to back it down. So let's suppose we back it all the way down to, well, eat half your calories from healthy food and half your calories from junk food. If you do that, you'll get some benefit. Okay, it's better than you have it now. Whereas if that's where if you started worse. If we do that, we run into an interesting problem. It might work for some people for a while, but the problem is that the pleasure trap is adulterating the whole process. It's pretty difficult for you to do it that half-baked. It's not that easy. Second of all, but what we have done is we've made it reasonably possible because the ego trap isn't too overwhelming. It's like, we can probably do that. But what we're also going to see is that the person won't have a lot of success and they won't have a lot of pride because it's not that great of an achievement. So what we want to do is we want to actually set the bar somewhere between too easy and too difficult, just like we would do for any child with anything that they're trying to learn or anything they're trying to accomplish. We don't try to set it too high to where they can't accomplish it. Even if they could reach it on a high note for a while, that's still too high. And we don't set it too low that there's no sense of accomplishment. So what you're seeing here, folks, is that there's an art to this that sits under the science. And so what we want to do is to set your goals for yourself at a reasonable but high level. And only you can feel what that is, and you have to experiment. So for myself, I set it pretty high. I would call it A- work. In other words, I don't do things perfectly, and I eat things that are, quote, off plan. I don't even think of it that way. Okay, I just know that they're not ideal. And I will do this routinely, okay? But the majority of my calories come from really healthy food, and I enjoy good health. That's good, okay? I've enjoyed better health. I've been more perfect at stretches. I have felt the sanctimonious feeling of superiority, of being really in a beautiful groove, okay? And I can feel a little bit healthier. I can feel it. It's very subtle, but it's there. Now, Alan loves that. He loves everything about it. That's good, okay? And I respect it, okay? Anybody that can pull off a perfect score, quiz after quiz after quiz for their whole life, that's an unusual personality, and we know what that looks like. But in order to get a great deal of benefit, in order to get an A, do I need to have a perfect score? No, I don't. The biggest concern that I have with the seeking of perfection is that when you're not perfect, i.e. human, then you catastrophize over it because you've been walked into an ego trap, and then you self-sabotage the whole thing. So this is where people will feel like unhealthy food is like, it's like crack, it's like heroin, it's a disaster, we have to fear it. No, you don't. It's not like crack, it's not like heroin, it's not even like coffee. Okay? These other things are mind-altering substances that create literally neurochemical dependencies that will drive alterations of brain chemistry and the inability to use the mind. It's not even remotely similar to alcohol. So Of course, I'm not saying that it's trivial, as I explained. This is a road that almost no one will ever walk on. Only the most conscientious, diligent, motivated people will even find the path. Once you find the path, it's still fraught with peril. There's a lot of things to learn and a lot of things that you have to do, and you got to do them well enough to be able to keep enough palate sensitivity and enough organization. You have to fight off a lot of social pressure. It's a lot you got to do. This is no easy thing. It is easy enough for people to infer that when they fail, that they have failed and that they have really fallen short of reasonable expectations. Because it would seem reasonable that they would be able to do it because others have done it. And it seems like a simplistic thing to do. Just control what you put in your mouth, is what Alan's been saying for 40 years. But it's incredibly difficult in a modern environment because you weren't designed to do it. You were designed to follow your lustful instincts to put the richest thing in your mouth that you could. So it isn't like control what you put in your mouth. You never had to control what you put in your mouth. You just followed your pleasure instincts about putting what was in your mouth. You maximized the short-term feeling of excitement. That's what you did. Now we're telling you, oh no, don't do that. Now, so one of the things that will transpire is that when people are very confused, where the ego trap has sabotaged them, they've sabotaged themselves in defense of their own status with their own internal audience or with an external audience. And they have done this, and they are deeply puzzled. There is nothing as nasty in the world to me as the ego trap. It's a horrible place to be psychologically. People are bitter, confused, lost, angry, sad, self-disgusted, suicidal. The ego trap is a miserable cauldron of confusion because the person desperately wants to just do their best and accomplish what they can. But the circumstances have transpired and conspired so that they can't do that. But what's actually in their best interest is to self-sabotage, like my guy at the tennis club. Okay, so he self-sabotaged by opting out and not trying, but other people actually go further. They literally sabotage themselves in significant ways. They deliberately and maliciously fail classes. They'll do things like that. They'll do other things. They will deliberately and maliciously drink because they know that the expectations are that they should be able to beat the alcohol, but they discovered that maybe they can't, and so they go on a bender and they show themselves and everybody else, I'm not trying. Okay? So these are hard things. And so the answer to her question was, what do you do, about trying to keep abstinent or whatever? And my answer to you is, you've got the wrong goal. So we begin at the beginning. Our goal is not abstinence. Our goal is long-term excellence. That's the goal. That means that you should expect and anticipate that you will not build a fortress around your life that looks like Chef AJ's or Alan's. That you should not expect yourself to do it, and you should build partial fortresses. You should be looking to be A students if you can. If you can't be an A student, be a B student. Okay? The vast majority of people that have ever benefited from John McDougall's message did not go 100%. The vast majority of people that lost the majority of the weight, recovered their health, reversed their heart disease, got rid of their rheumatoid arthritis. In other words, the vast majority of the good that has come out of the work of Campbell, Esselstyn, McDougall, Ornish, etc., has not come inside of people who are 100%. The vast majority of good came from people who are about 80%, who got their palate clean enough to do a good enough job that they continue to like a lot of whole natural food and they did not relapse back to a conventional diet. That's where almost all of the benefit has ever come from this dietary and lifestyle information. The fact that you may want to take it further because you don't want to stop at 20 pounds overweight or you don't want to stop at 40 pounds overweight, depending upon your genetics. But you want to take this to the ultimate. It's the ultimate weight loss plan. You want to do that, remember, you're seeking a rarefied goal. So for goodness sake, please be willing to accept an A, and don't think that you need to get an A+, because you don't. And along the way, someday, you may find yourself in a deep groove that lasts indefinitely for the rest of your life. You might, but you might not. Okay, so I began this journey of healthful eating and consciousness about health and healthy eating when I was about 16. Okay, so that's now, I'm 43 years into this. And 43 years in, I have been very stable for the last couple of decades at what I would call A- work. Okay, so there's days when I get an A+, and there's days when I get a B. Okay, on average, A- work. How do I feel about it? Pretty good. Do I have really strong self-esteem about it? It's sanctimonious internal gloating and awe of myself? Nope. Nope, that's not something that I've earned. Okay? It's okay. I can live with it. I've got other agendas. I've got other places where I try to earn self-esteem. I've got other places where I earn esteem from others. I have a good life. Okay? But I don't seek perfection anywhere. And the answer to the question is, don't seek it here either. It's not a good gamble. Seek excellence. Maybe one day you find perfection for a period of time. But if you do and then you stumble, don't catastrophize over it. Okay, you can recover the little self-esteem shock that comes with your own stumble in a matter of a couple of days. Okay, you don't have to go on a bender, kick over the table, and disrupt the whole process. You screw up a little bit, okay, so you screwed up. No crisis. Go back. In 2 days, your internal audience will once again look at you and say, hey, that's right. That's not Seth that I know. And it will start nodding at you and smiling again. Don't kick over the table behind putting the bar too high.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. People are saying this is so liberating, so true, things like that.
Good. What else we got? Got anything else?
Well, we do, but I want to respect your time. I'm just trying to think which question to go to. Why don't we switch gears a little bit since
Sure.
the holidays are coming up?
Sure.
And this is not about food, but this is from Angie. How do we deal with toxic family members who are estranged but resurface around the holidays to cause trouble? Why do holidays or special events trigger these people to ruin an otherwise happy time?
Yeah, I just dealt with one of these on the phone today. What I would tell you, this is sort of a big, broad question, and I'll just try to do it kind of quickly. And that is that if these family members aren't good friends of yours, if this is some obligation that we are doing just because we're kin, and that we got to kind of do this or everybody would be all weirded out by it, then I would minimize this contact to a really, really low level. And the way I would do it is I would go out to dinner. So I just told a lady today, for goodness sakes, don't have Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, etc., or go over to their place. No, just say, no, let's all go out. If you all go out, you don't have to talk to these people. You can talk to the 2 or 3 people. It's too noisy. You can't even talk to those people. And we don't have to have all this cross-examination about the food. They're down the table. Okay, it's all cool. You order your food. Everybody orders their food at the table. You throw in your money for the check. Shake everybody's hand. Hug them. You look great. You know, everything sounds great. You look great. Kids are great. See you later. Done for another year. Okay, that's how I would do it. If I did it at all. Okay. The truth is I'd probably opt out every other year, so we cut the problem in half just like that. And then we aren't a total leper because every other year we do show up, and when we show up, let's all go out to dinner. That's what we want to do. And you stick your stake in the ground right there and try to make it so that this is not some long drawn out affair where all it is, you get there at 7 o'clock, you're out of there by 20 after 9, and that's that. My favorite movie is As Good as It Gets, because it's my favorite character, this Jack Nicholson, who is truly the psychological morph of Alan Goldhammer. This is what this is. And at one moment, some guys, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s characters, warming up to Jack and to the Melvin character, who is just this crusty, completely, self-interested, but very moral character. But he's a difficult human, and we find in the end that he's extraordinarily decent person, but he's just got a rough exterior. And so the Cuba character is finally enjoying him at a restaurant, and he's laughing and smiling and giving him a little bit of a hard time for being sort of a false curmudgeon that actually has a heart of gold. And Jack just looks at him and says, "Let's not drag this thing out. We don't like each other that much." I have loved that line. I have said to that line to like 100 times, and it always kind of shocks and disturbs people when I do it, because there's usually a hint of truth in this line for everybody. Like, they don't like me that much, and they wouldn't necessarily want this to go on another 2 hours, but they like me. And it's a little bit of an over. I probably said it to Colin, who I love, okay? but just this, but I just love that moment. And there's so much truth in that moment when we're with family that we're not that wild about. Let's not drag this thing out. We don't like each other that much. So set it up, and set it up in a way that you don't have to pay too much of the currency of your life on earth by kowtowing or being in uncomfortable circumstances.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lisle. Perhaps you'll come back next year and answer the remaining questions.
I sure will, AJ. It'd be my great pleasure.
All right. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. And thank you so much, Dr. Lisle.
You bet.